Welcome to the Rachel's English Podcast. I'm Rachel, and I make this podcast to help non-native speakers learn how to speak English and understand Americans and sound more American if that's their wish. This week, I'm sitting down with my husband, David, and we're reflecting on a recent trip that we took to Italy where we were struggling to find the phrases to be polite. So today we're going to talk about phrases in English that you can use in various settings like a restaurant or a store when you're interacting with people who work for the restaurant or store. How to be polite, how to ask for things, and how to thank people for things. Let's jump right in. David, one thing I'm thinking about is, remember in Rome, there was that supli shop on our street?
Right, I do remember that, yes.
It was so popular. There were always... any time of day, it was crowded.
People were constantly going in and out, yeah.
So we decided, okay, obviously we need to eat whatever is in there.
Something is going on in there, yeah.
So one evening, I went in. It was probably like 9 or 10. Or no, Stony. Well, yeah, maybe it was 9 or 10. And it was really crowded. And I didn't really know how it worked. It was just a counter where people could buy all sorts of deep fried things.
Right.
And so I told David, okay, I'm going in. So David and Stony were waiting for me outside. And after like 10 minutes, I came back out and I said, I can't do it.
Because how it works is very different. There's not a line-based system.
Right. I
in
came
a lot
out
of places like that in Italy.
I came out empty-handed. And what I said was I couldn't do it. Like my Italian skills aren't good enough to figure out how to butt in. So actually for me, there were two things happening there. There was like culturally, I didn't know how it worked because no one was like getting behind somebody. There was no line forming.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I was just way too intimidated to say, like in America, what would I say in that situation? If it was sort of chaos and there was just a sort of a group of people with no sort of sense of line forming, what I would say is, I think I was next or something like that. What would you say in a situation like that in America if, let's say you're at a grocery store at the deli counter getting some ham sliced thin for some delicious sandwiches?
I might say, oh yeah, I think I was next. But I mean, part of what's interesting is that as a native speaker, you have a whole range of things that you could say that have a lot of nuance to them.
Right.
That hopefully we're going to be able to talk about today in the podcast. In other words, at the deli counter, I might say, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was here. Thanks. And play it sort of nice.
Mm-hmm.
Or, the situation might call for being a little bit more pointed, just with a subtle intonation maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
or
oh,
an
yeah,
expression, body language too would play in big.
Body
here.
language, yeah. Right.
So this is where culturally, I think we're seeing a difference too between Italy and America. In America, like it would be very orderly. You would be expected to get into a line and wait your turn. And in Italy, it seems just a little bit more casual than that. Whereas in America, it seems like, if you're approaching a deli counter and there's already somebody there, that you kind of stand behind them somewhat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or if it's just a couple, it's not a big deal. But as soon as it started getting like more popular, more people there, then there would really be a sense of a line forming.
And I think there was usually some order to it. I realized this is later in the trip where I was a lot more comfortable and probably had picked up on some of the cultural cues. But when I went to that market in Genoa and got the bread at that bakery.
I remember you telling me about David saw this swarm of people.
Yeah.
And he knew, okay, I need to go buy whatever is being sold there.
Right. There were 3 different bakeries at the market, I think, but the one had people swarming around it. So, I joined the swarm. I paid attention to who had swarmed in after me. And everybody else had done that too. And so there was some paying attention to who was there next. And there was a bit of politeness.
Did it seem like the people selling were paying attention to who was there next? Or were they relying on you guys to do that?
Mostly it was relying on us.
Mm-hmm.
It was one person. So she was, she's packaging up bread and ringing people up. And she didn't have the ability, I don't think, to manage the line. But people for the most part were deferential to each other. But there was a sense of like, if you're going to be in here screwing around or don't know what you want or whatever, or you're not going to take your turn, I'll take it if you're not taking it.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't a line.
Which is funny because another phrase I'm thinking in America that you could use if this was happening is you could say, like, if the person who is selling whatever starts giving you the attention, I've definitely seen this happen. I think she was next. So rather than taking your turn, you direct it to whoever had been there before you.
Yeah, that's a good phrase.
Mhm.
Oh no, she was here first.
Right. I
Oh,
think she was
actually,
next.
yeah, I
She
think she
was
was
here
here
first.
first.
Yeah, exactly. So those are things that you could use in that situation. Another thing,
You could also say, "Oh, actually, I was here first."
yeah,
If they start to help the person
right.
whose turn.
And if you're in a rush and need to get out, I think in many cases you would probably just let that person cut in front of you.
Well, maybe not.
Yeah, I guess that's a personality thing.
Yeah.
Another thing I was thinking about in this situation is I could have just, like, as soon as I saw the guy hand a package across the counter to somebody and I knew he was ready, I could have just sort of blurted out what I wanted. I'll have 2 soupli or whatever.
Right. But then that's hard when you don't know exactly what you want to order.
Right. Or if you had a question about something, like I wanted to know, is this vegetarian? And then I had a hard time getting their attention. So the moral of the story is you might have to get aggressive sometimes and just sort of speak up, even if you're not exactly sure what to say. If you're in a group of people and you need the attention of someone, you might have to say, I'd like this. And then you can say, oh, is it vegetarian? And then after you get the attention, after you've established you're being helped, then maybe you can open it up for asking a question.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Oh, so I ended up not buying anything that evening, but then I did come back the next day earlier in the morning when it wasn't crowded, and I did buy some stuff.
Yeah, you were persistent.
I felt good about just getting it done. It was not crowded when I went in the next time. And I could ask, is this vegetarian? And he said, no, it has meat. And I said, okay, then I'll just have one. This is all in Italian. I said, okay, then I'll just have one. And then he packaged it up and I said, 2. And then I had some anyway.
And do you think that they were good enough for the constant line? I don't know that they were. I
No.
think they were overrated.
No, I think you're right. But I think for what they were, for deep fried street food, it was something interesting. I've never had one of those before. I'm glad I did it. But no, it's not like that is the meal that stands out for me in our Italian journey.
Right.
One thing that does stand out is the bread that David got from that vendor in the market in Genoa.
Oh, man, that was worth joining the melee of people.
Yeah, that was worth pushing through your comfort zone of being like, I'm in a crowd of people. I don't know how this works. I'm going to try to speak Italian anyway.
And also, we learned that the bread in the Tuscany region, they don't use much or any salt. And so the bread wasn't that great. And then we had gone north and the bread was, oh my God, amazing.
Very good bread. Okay, another situation that I found myself in was we were eating out a lot because, we were traveling and we were often away from the house, sightseeing and stuff during the middle of the day. So one thing I found myself wanting to do was ask if a restaurant had a high chair. And I knew how to say the word for high chair. I think I even knew how to say, do you have? But I wasn't sure what was polite, and I didn't know if it would be read like, do you personally have a high chair, when I was meaning to ask, does the restaurant have a high chair? So I was struggling with knowing how to phrase that really politely. And I was thinking about how in American English, like you've said, there's subtlety, there's nuance. There are lots of different ways you could ask the same question, all with varying degrees of formality and politeness. So I've come up with a couple phrases you can use if you're walking into a restaurant, for example, and you want to know, do you have a high chair? Or if you're walking in anywhere and you want to know if they have something, rather than just saying, do you have this? Which might be a little rude.
Right. This is way more broad than high chairs. I mean, this is great for everything from a hardware store where you're trying to say you need to pick up a hammer, or a restaurant wondering if they have a certain dish.
Right. Do you have gluten-free pizza or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've come up with a couple of phrases. Let me know what you think. You could say, I need a high chair, or I need a hammer. Do you have one? I mean, that would be a simple way. I need this. Do you have it? You could also say, do you happen to have a high chair? Do you happen to have gluten-free pasta? When you're saying, do you happen to have, I think here you're thinking, maybe not. They might not have it. Like you're not sure. It doesn't seem too likely that they would have it.
And you're also, again, it's a nuance thing, but you're also making them feel good if they do.
Mm.
Like do you happen to have, you would really be meeting my needs above and beyond, kind of. It's like, do you
Right.
happen to have, it's very generous to the person that you're asking. It
Right.
gives them a lot of room to say no.
Right. Because it's when you're saying, do you happen to have, it's like you're saying, I know it's not likely that you would have it, but maybe you do. I'm going to ask anyway. Do you happen to have gluten-free focaccia?
Awful.
What else? Okay, you could also say, could you tell me if you have high chairs? Could you tell me if you have gluten-free pasta?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like that's, again, there's leaving some room. You don't quite expect the person to have it. This is, you think that they probably do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
This is like you're in a pasta shop, and could you tell me if you have ravioli that was made today?
Right.
Because you're expecting that probably they do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit more direct than do you happen to have.
And well, I also think it's also more polite than do you have ravioli that was made today? Could you tell me if you have, it's a roundabout way, and it's like the roundabout extra words using could or would adds politeness. For example, this next phrase that I came up with is way more extra words, and it's a little convoluted, but it is used, and it's sort of extra formal and polite. Would you be able to tell me if you have pasta that was made today?
Mm-hmm.
Would you be able to tell me if?
It's, yeah. Now you're being really generous to the person that you're asking, because you're not even sure that they want to talk to you. It's like,
Right.
would you be able to tell me if you have? You're really, what's the word?
I think the would and the could of the previous sentence, could you tell me if you have? Would and could have more politeness than do you, or just saying, is there this? Do you have this? Could you tell me if? Would you be willing to tell me if? No, that's too much. Would you be able to tell me if, though? There's just an extra layer of politeness with those could, would words.
Yeah. Right.
And formality, I would say. It's a little bit more formal.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, would you be able to tell me if you have?
Yeah, I guess formal's the word.
What other word are you thinking of?
I don't know. Formal, polite. You certainly don't know the person. Like you wouldn't say that to the little corner store that you pop into every day.
Right, where they know you and you know them.
Right. That gets to the next one that we wanted to talk about. I mean, in a situation like that where you're familiar, you can just, pop your head in and say, hey, do you guys have eggs?
Yeah. There you can say, do you have? And it's a little bit, it's less blunt. It's less lacking nuance because you already know the person. So there's some nuance there just in your relationship to the person and your friendship with that person.
I'm thinking about how all of these are different if you say them with a smile versus a serious tone.
Right. Friendly tone.
Right. If you go in somewhere and you say in sort of a cold tone, could you tell me if you have ravioli? That's going to put the person on edge a little bit versus a big smile. And you say, could you tell me if you guys have ravioli today? There's such a difference in how warm your tone is.
One thing that I've noticed as I've been really studying the voice over the past 10 years and how we use it in English is that when people want to be extra polite and extra friendly, they tend to raise their pitch a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell me if you have versus could you tell me if you have?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing that I noticed you just did.
Yeah. And it's something that's good for non-native speakers to know that if you're in a situation where you're already uncomfortable and you know that you need to be asking for something, raise your tone a little bit because that's going to be experienced by the listener as sort of like friendly or more open way to be asked.
Actually, David, because you don't interact with students every day, you don't know this, but many students, their pitch is already a little too high out of feeling nervousness or uncomfortable speaking English. So actually, I would say that would be a good tip for an American who's trying to figure out how to be more polite. But for a non-native speaker, I don't think I would necessarily say that.
Gotcha.
They may notice an American speaking really high and be like, why are they speaking so high?
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple of reasons. One is because they're trying to be extra friendly and energized and positive. And the other thing is maybe they're nervous, because some Americans also, I think, their pitch goes up some when they're nervous.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense.
So another situation, I'm thinking about my Aunt Eleanor, who came to visit me when I lived in New York City, and she's in a wheelchair. And I wanted to take her out to eat somewhere. And New York City, like lots of cities, there are a lot of steps. And so she had like a really big mechanical, not just a small wheelchair that you can fold, but like an extremely heavy wheelchair. There was no way that this thing could be lifted up steps with her in it. So she told me, call restaurants and use this phrase, do you have a no-step entrance? So when you're calling a restaurant or a store or whatever to ask for something and you're not seeing somebody, you could say, hello, do you happen to have, again, it's do you happen, meaning it's maybe not very likely. Do you happen to have a no-step entrance? I mean, almost no one in New York City had a no-step entrance.
Mm-hmm.
You could also say, I'm calling to see if you have, or I was wondering if you have a no-step entrance. I was wondering. This is a really common way to ask about something. And you could also use this in a store, I think. I was wondering if you guys have strawberry ice cream. And I was thinking about it. Why do we use past tense there instead of I'm wondering if you have? We always say I was, and was reduces. So it sounds like this. I was. I was wondering if.
Man, that's tough for a non-native speaker.
Well, once you study it, once you know, okay, was is going to be was.
Yeah.
Then, you practice it, you get it in your body.
I'm just thinking about the past tense combined with the reduction. I mean, it's tough.
I was wondering if you have, so the I was is past tense and then the you have is present tense.
Yeah, that's a mess.
So I don't know why that's something we use, but that's a really common phrase. Again, a friendly way that's more polite than saying, do you have? I was wondering if you have whatever. Okay, when we were at a restaurant and we were wanting to get the check to pay, I knew how to say the check, please. Mm-hmm. But there are more polite ways to say that if you're willing to learn a few more words within a phrase. One thing that I was thinking about with this that makes me laugh about how we do it in America, one of the you can say we'd like the check or we're ready for the check. But then we sometimes will add on when you get the chance.
Right.
And that makes me laugh. It's what that means is you don't need to rush to do this. It's okay if you have other things you have to do first. Like if some table is waiting for their food, obviously take them their food before you bring me the check.
Yeah, you don't want to come off as demanding.
Right.
And
you recognize the server is busy.
And we use that to be passive aggressive too. You can say it in a way that's like when you get the chance. I don't know. It's almost like not passive aggressive. You want to curry favor with them. Like if the restaurant is super packed and it's like when you get the chance, I know you're busy, but hook me up. I know you're busy, but like, come on, can you get the check for us?
I think it does add an extra layer of politeness, niceness when you get the chance. And it does depend on how you say it,
Yeah. You're right. It's
with everything.
It's mostly being
Tone
generous
matters.
to the server. It's mostly
when you get the chance. It's like saying we don't need to get out of here right now. If you're like running late for the theater or something, you could say something like, "Oh, we need to get going to make our movie. Could you bring us the check?" or whatever. Then that's obviously really different than we'd like the check when you get the chance.
Yeah, and it's totally appropriate to say, "Sorry, we've got to get going." Yeah. We also say we're all set.
Yeah, we're all set. If the server comes and says, "Can I get you anything else?" you can say, "Nope, we're all set." We're all set means we don't need anything more.
Or sometimes they'll come over and say, "Anything else?" You can say, "Just the check."
Mm-hmm. Just the check, please. We're all set. Okay, I also learned how to say in Italian, toilet. Single word, just like the bill. Single word intonation, making it a question. But if you want to learn a whole phrase here, you could say, "Could you tell me where the bathroom is?" Or we often use the word restroom in America. "Could you tell me where the restroom is?"
Mm-hmm. And we pointedly don't say toilet.
No, we don't. That's strange. That sounds strange in America. I mean, we all get it, but It's like, for some reason, we're scared of that word. It's the
Yeah.
actual thing you sit on. No way. We're going to reference the room instead.
Right.
Now, another thing I was thinking about is if you're like at a restaurant and you want to know where the bathroom is and you walk up to the bartender, and let's say the bartender is looking at you the whole time as you're approaching, then you could say, could you tell me where the bathroom is? But if the person's not looking at you and you need to get their attention first, it's not that polite to just blurt your question expecting that they will look up at you. I think it's more polite to start with pardon me or excuse me or even just hi. Just an initial something to get their attention, and then you can ask the question. I was also thinking about walking into a store and needing to get some diapers for Stony. I didn't know how to say that. I would just walk in and say, like, diapers? My Italian skills were really pretty bad. But people out there who are listening, their English skills are pretty good. So let's work with some phrases here. So if you walk into a store and you see a clerk, you could say, could you tell me where is or are? Could you tell me where diapers are? Could you tell me where the baby food aisle is? Or you could also just say, do you have diapers? And I've also thought you could say, do you guys have diapers? Guys seems really casual, but we do use it in these settings sometimes to separate like you, the individual, from you, the store.
Yeah, I think we use that a lot.
Do you guys have AA batteries?
Do you guys have cold beer?
Right. Another thing that I've thought about, do you guys have, you could also say, do you guys carry? And that's interesting because, we think of the word to carry as like to pick up and walk with something. But we also use it for stores a lot to mean, is this something they sell? Do you guys carry baby wipes? Do you guys carry baby food? Do you guys carry organic milk? Or you could also say, do you guys sell? Do you guys sell pre-made, pre-washed salad bags? Salad mix bags? I'm just trying to think of nice things that someone might sell.
Those salad bags.
They're so convenient. You don't have to wash the lettuce. And then if they say, they'll usually say, yes, it's in aisle 8 or whatever, or yes, it's down here. If they don't say that, if they just say, yeah, we do, then you would then say, okay, where are they? But I think it's very unlikely that if you walk into a store and ask if they carry something, that they would not tell you where it is. They will say yes, and then they'll tell you where it is. Now, let's go back to the deli counter.
All right.
So it's your turn. You want to get thin sliced honey ham for your sandwiches for the week.
Yep.
And it's your turn. So rather than just saying a half pound of thin sliced honey ham, you could say, I'd like a half pound of honey ham. Or you could say, could I please have? Could I please have a half pound of thinly sliced honey ham?
We also say, I'll take.
I'll take a half pound of thin sliced honey ham. So there are 3 phrases that you can use that just putting those few extra words in front of what you want makes it a more polite interaction. And now let's say they hand you the honey ham or they've just told you where diapers are. Then you can thank them. There are several ways that you can say thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah. And this is something that I really struggled with when we were in Italy because I knew how to say thank you, but there's so much more you can imply. I picked up then on how to say thanks very much. But yeah, here, I mean, I have a whole range. We have a whole range of things we could say.
Right.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. That was so kind of you. That meant the world to me. There's all these different variations on what we could say.
Yeah, that meant the world to me would be like, okay, this person really helped you out. Like, let's say, I don't know, you're down.
You have a flat tire.
Yeah.
And somebody comes along and helps you change your tire.
Right.
Oh, that meant the world. Thank you so much.
Or let's say someone's giving you directions. You're totally lost. You could say, that's so helpful. Thank you so much.
Or we say, thanks a million.
Which they say in Italy too, remember?
Yeah, right.
Grazie mille. Well, now we know. Next time we travel, we can sort of think of the phrases that we use a lot in English to be polite, and we can learn those in the language rather than, we really didn't do a great job preparing before we left on Like I started learning Italian, but it was more conversational and it was like, I want this, I would like that. And it wasn't so much, thank you so much, or could you please tell me where blah, blah, blah is.
Mm-hmm.
So, but hopefully this has helped the people out there thinking about different phrases that you can use in English to add another level of politeness when you're interacting with somebody at a store or at a restaurant or something like that. David, thanks for being here and for helping me brainstorm these phrases.
Yeah, that was really fun. And like you said, next time I travel internationally, I will definitely spend some time with these kinds of phrases in the language that I'm going to be speaking.
Okay, guys, that's it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening. If you're not subscribed, please consider doing this in the iTunes store or on Stitcher. Also, leave me a review there. I read them all, and I love to hear what you guys think of the Rachel's English podcast. And I have another ask of you. Would you be willing to share this episode or one of your favorite episodes on social media to your family, to your friends? I'm really trying to spread the word about the podcast. So share your favorite episode. Say why you liked the episode. And let's see if we can get more people listening, more people learning English. That's it, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.